Minister, Buckingham Palace, or in fairness, any other Band H property in Westminster, they pay £2,095 a year in council tax. That's roughly what a quite average Band D property in my constituency of Woking pays. That's actually over £100 less than what Band C property in your constituency of Birkenhead pays. Council tax is unfair. Do you agree? And are you going to reform it?
Yes, I do agree that it's unfair, and you have described the situation that is extremely frustrating. It is a flawed system, and we have introduced some measures. The Chancellor announced the high value council tax charge in acknowledgement of how regressive the system is. Council tax is a really important part of local government finance, and when I think about what people need who are dealing with the issues that we face in this country at the moment, they do need really good local public services as well. So I bear that in mind always, but I cannot disagree with the situation as you describe it, and we need to make progress.
Great. When are you going to reform it then, if you agree with me?
So we've already, as I said, we've already taken steps to make changes. The high value council tax surcharge has been put in place by the Chancellor on that. You'll also be aware of the campaigning work of Martin Lewis on the way that council tax is collected, and I think that's an important thing in terms of helping people to deal with the impact that council tax can have on them, and I'm sure the committee will be aware of the detail and the changes that we have made. It also comes back to the funding arrangements that we were talking about earlier, where it was really important as part of the fair funding review that we took account of the difference in council tax that we see across the country, and rebalanced funding towards areas of greater need, and to account for differences in areas' ability to raise council tax. I'm particularly concerned about the wide variation that we see in local council tax support. I think that is a big challenge, and we've also got issues with the Valuation Office, that if we did have any future reforms building on what we're doing with high value council tax surcharge, that we would need to address. So this is a process that is ongoing, and I want to work towards a fairer system.
Again, agree with you. Finally, we're completely agreeing on everything. But the government's approach is, I think if I was going to be unfair, it's tinkering around the edges. You are changing it, but it is not a radical change. We still are stuck with the system that we both agree is unfair. But you've not outlined a plan to review the system. You've not outlined a plan to comprehensively reform council tax. Is it because it's too politically difficult to do so? Is there a lack of capacity in MHCLG? What's the reason why you aren't properly reforming council tax?
So I think that our approach needs to put in place elements to make the system more progressive. We need to make the system more effective, and then we need to look at where the opportunities for change are. And so, as I mentioned, the Chancellor announced, and we are taking through the changes with high value council tax surcharge, as I said, to make it more progressive. There are problems within how the system is administered that could be dealt with quickly and needed to be dealt with. For example, making it collected by 12 months as a default, giving people more breathing time, when so that not paying didn't trigger enforcement quite so quickly, which is the campaign that Martin Lewis ran successfully. And then we need to move on from there to help the valuation office improve, which we're doing, working with very closely with the Treasury. But there is a lot more to do, and as I said, I'm considering, particularly given the discussion we were having earlier about incomes and looking at the whole of families' incomes and costs, the evidence that we have on the quite wide variety of council tax support and how that works. I've had evidence from members of Parliament and others on the way that this can interact with universal credit and the challenges that are there. I think it's important to do those things that we can do and build up from there, and try to move towards a fairer system.
You're looking at some options. Have you got a timescale on that, Minister? I'm pleased you've mentioned council tax support. I think that's something that I'm concerned with. Despite my authority's challenges, we've ensured that the most vulnerable people aren't required to pay a bit of council tax. I know in the next door seat in Surrey, Heath, a few years ago, they were requiring sort of poor people on benefits to pay a chunk of their council tax when they know full well that they shouldn't be charged, they can't afford it. Are you doing a review of this system to work out the fairness of that, to try to set more guidance?
So we look all the time at the interactions between what we're doing and the universal credit system, and I mentioned before how closely Minister Timms and I are working. I've seen examples of this that I want to know more about how we can support people, particularly at the lower end of the income distribution, to be supported well and make sure that there aren't inadvertent interactions. I would definitely want to say more to the committee once we've done more of that work, but I think your insights will be very helpful on that.